So, a very good morning to all of you. And we begin with unraveling the mystery of orbital tumors, some challenging cases for all of you to share and to interact. So, the first case, I'll give you a hint, it was a case of an unusual round cell tumor. And this is what the clinical history was like. She was a 12-year-old girl who presented with proptosis in the right eye for 25 days. There was associated loss of vision for 10 days. And on imaging, there was a firm irregular mass in the supratemporal orbit, as you all can see. It was inseparable from the lateral orbital rim. This was on clinical examination. CT scan showed a 13 to 25 millimeter lesion. The lateral rectus was involved. There was frontal bony remodeling. The ultrasound showed low to medium reflectivity. So you can see the clinical picture over here, and you have the imaging as well. So anybody from the audience would like to take a guess?
So when a biopsy was done, what we found in this case was a usual malignant round cell tumor. And as Dr. Kashyap had told you, so the panel of stains that we do for a malignant round cell tumor, first we do a LCA. The LCA was negative in case, so that the lymphoma was ruled out. The next we did a Desmond. Desmond was also negative, so embryonal rhabdomyosarcoma was out. Then MIC2 staining was positive. So when MIC2 staining is positive, what are the possibilities? Could anyone from the audience tell? A CD99 positivity points out to what lesion? So I can repeat once again, whenever MIC2 is positive, CD99 positivity is there. It can either be an Ewing sarcoma or it can be a PNET. So what we do is we do a pass staining. So in this case, like you all can see, here's the pointer. Pointer. I think off again. So here you can see, this is the malignant round cell tumor that we saw, and the immunohistochemistry showed MIC2 positivity, and when we do a periodic acid shift stain, that is for glycogen. So this was very strongly positive, and this was diastase sensitive, so that proves that it was glycogen. So when we have a PS staining positive, then the diagnosis is not PNET, but it is going to be an Ewing sarcoma. And on electron microscopy also we can see these glycogen lakes. So our final diagnosis is Ewing sarcoma, and the differential diagnosis, as we discussed, was a PNET. And we searched for the primary in the patient because it is very unusual to have a primary orbital Ewing sarcoma. Since there was no primary lesion, this was diagnosed as a primary PNET of the primary Ewing sarcoma of the orbit. And the patient underwent surgery, and this was followed by chemo and radiotherapy. The characteristic cytogenetic finding in PNET group is the translocation of 1122 and 1124 and 22 chromosome 22 translocation. This is the characteristic finding for the Ewing sarcoma PNET group. And as compared to the PNET from other sites, the orbital PNET has got a better prognosis. And but however, the long-term prognosis is still unknown because primary PNET is very rare in the orbit. So the take-home message is that whenever you have a malignant round cell tumor and we do a panel of stains and PNET comes out to be positive, it has to be either Ewing's or a PNET. And when PAS is negative, then it is going to be a PNET. And if his PAS is positive, that is glycogen is present, it's going to be an Ewing sarcoma. And always examine the patient systemically to rule out any primary in the long bone before calling it a primary Ewing sarcoma of the orbit. So now we move on to the next case.
So, case 2 was a 4-year-old girl. She presented with axial proptosis of the right eye. The duration was 5 months. There was associated pain and redness and visual disturbances also. Then, on imaging, there was a 3 into 2.5 centimeter enhancing retroorbital mass, which was encasing the optic nerve. So, it was suspicious of a glioma, and then the mass was excised surgically. So here you can see the gross and the histopath, which ma'am will like to elaborate.
Yeah, we'll ask the audience, what is the
Yeah,
differential diagnosis now?
So in a 4-year-old girl with a retroorbital mass and a duration of about 5 months of proptosis with pain, redness and visual disturbances, what are the things that would come to your mind?
Commonest would be a glioma, like we mentioned. So, any other possibilities you would like to suggest? Beg your pardon?
Yeah, usually it is painless. That's right. And also the optic nerve, yeah.
So, Dr. Sharma can. So, what are the various differential diagnoses?
In this age group.
Or a retroorbital mass.
So,
okay, so rhabdomyosarcoma is one possibility Dr. Sharma is suggesting.
what about lymphangioma? With this kind of a clinical, yeah. That's it. And the CT.
So there are two possibilities that Dr. Sharma is suggesting. It could either be a embryonal rhabdomyosarcoma or a lymphangioma.
Yeah, clear.
Okay, so the third possibility that has been suggested is it could be a chloroma. So with this background now, we moved on. The biopsy was performed, and on surgery, what was found? The tumor was encasing the optic nerve, and it was a yellowish tumor. And and what we saw was in the specimen was, this is the optic nerve.
It's not coming.
So what you can see is this is the optic nerve here, and you can see again a malignant round cell tumor which was surrounding the optic nerve. So we did a panel of immunohistochemistry once again. LCA was again negative, and similarly Desmin was also negative. What we found positive was, I'll go on to the light microscopy, we found these occasional rosettes that were present, and some of the tumor cells were arranged in tubules, and they were looking like medullary epithelial cells with occasional rosettes and mitotic figures. And immunohistochemistry was positive for NSC, that is neuron-specific enolase, GFAP, S100, and EMA. So LCA ruled out a lymphoma, Desmin ruled out embryonal rhabdomyosarcoma, and GFAP was negative, so that ruled out a glioma. So what are the various possibilities? Anyone from the audience? So one possibility is the medulloepithelioma, because you have these characteristic rosettes. And of course it is S100 positive. So this was a very rare case of an optic nerve medulloepithelioma. And the differential diagnosis, of course, we should be very sure that it's not a retinoblastoma also, because there was no intraocular mass, because you have rosettes in retinoblastomas also. And it's a very rare tumor to have, because normally medulloepitheliomas arise from the ciliary body. So this was a very unusual case which was reported, optic nerve medulloepithelioma. And this patient received post-op radiotherapy, and chemotherapy was planned, but he was lost to follow-up. Any questions?
Okay, so we move on to case 3. A 7-year-old child with history of rapidly increasing proptosis since 3 months. On clinical examination, there was restriction of extraocular movements. Radiological investigations showed multiple osteolytic lesions in the skull, bilateral long bones, and calcification. So there were bilateral orbital masses and a biopsy was taken. So I would request Dr. Sharma to please elaborate on the imaging findings.
What Dr. Sharma was talking about is a case of a primary neuroblastoma which was in the adrenals, and this child had presented with proptosis. So what we saw in the biopsy was once again a malignant round cell tumor. Here you can see, and you can see, if you see very carefully, you can see these pinkish areas. These are actually the ill-defined homocyte rosettes which were present. And immunohistochemistry once again was negative for LCA, ruled out a lymphoma, Desmond ruled out a rhabdomyosarcoma, and MIG2 was also negative. So PNET was also out. So what was positive was a neuron-specific enolase as well as stain for neurofilaments, and this confirmed the diagnosis of a neuroblastoma.
So that was metastatic neuroblastoma. Any questions?
So as I said that you have to distinguish it from a PNET and a lymphoma, and on light microscopy we have to look out for these cytoplasmic processes which are the neurofilaments. And the neuron-specific enolase is the most sensitive marker, although it's non-specific. And other markers like neurofilaments, S100 and synaptophysin can be useful. And for the patient, we can also perform urinary VMA levels, which will be found to be elevated if it's a case of a neuroblastoma.
Okay, so we move on to case 4, which was of a 2-year-old boy who presented with recurrent swelling in the right inferior orbit since 1 year. There was enophthalmos with upward displacement of the globe. CT scan showed a homogeneously enhancing extracorneal lesion, which was 20 into 14 millimeters. It was adherent to the inferior rectus. The mass was excised by an anterior orbitotomy. This is the microscopy and the... So now we move on to some rare mesenchymal tumors. So this was a 45-year-old man who presented with pain in the right infraorbital region and proptosis for 1 year. There was a globular mass which was 2.5 into 4.5 centimeters involving the inferior fornix. It was firm to hard in consistency. CT showed a large retrobulbar soft tissue mass with dense calcification. The bone, however, was normal. So an incisional biopsy was taken because the tumor was surgically unresectable due to vascularity. On gross examination, it showed grayish white color with cartilage and bone. And ma'am will describe the light microscopy. So this was case 6 of a 40-year-old male who presented with proptosis for 1 year, and it was rapidly increasing since 4 months. On clinical examination, there was a mass below the left eye, and the eyeball was pushed anteriorly, laterally, and superiorly. The ultrasound showed an ill-defined mass with high internal reflectivity. The CT showed an extracorneal inferomedial mass involving the medial and inferior recti, the retroocular space extension. So, Dr. Shah, so as you can see, the imaging is very limited in this case, and a lot of differentials have to be kept in mind. So let's see what the biopsy showed.
A similar case was presented by Dr. Kashyap also. So basically what we found on microscopy was a rich fibrovascular stroma and the characteristic lipoblasts which were present. So this is the exentration specimen, and you can see this huge tumor which is a gelatinous tumor present in the lower eyelid area. And presence of these lipoblasts and the plexiform pattern made a diagnosis of a myxoid liposarcoma. So this has a characteristic S100 stain which was positive. Next.
So it's a rare tumor of the orbit. They're low-grade tumors. The role of radiotherapy is debatable.
So we just have got time for, I think, one last case now.
So this was a 6-month-old male. This has already been shown by Dr. Neelam. And proptosis in the right eye since birth. There were multiple pigmented nevi over the body, suggestive of congenital melanocytic nevi. The CCT showed an intensely enhancing lesion with scalloped expansion of the right orbit that was encasing the optic nerve. The biopsy showed a melanocytoma.
So Here, characteristically, what you can see is this large tumor cells which are polygonal, and they were full of this pigment. As you can see, grossly also, tumor is black in color. So the problem was now it's a melanocytic lesion. About that there was no doubt, but the problem was whether to call it a melanoma or whether to call it a melanocytoma. So how do we distinguish now? Anyone from the audience? So we have a case of orbital mass, which is melanocytic in origin. So whether to call it a malignant melanoma or whether to call it a melanocytoma. So we looked for mitotic figures. There were no mitotic figures. Then we proceeded to do a Ki67 or a MIB1 stain. So that was extremely low. That was less than 1%. So this was very useful to us in distinguishing it from a malignant melanoma. So we had no problems in making a diagnosis of a benign melanocytoma. However, because of the nature of the tumor, the excision had to be done. So this was a case of a giant congenital melanocytoma, and the patient had multiple melanocytic nevi, and the cell of origin could be any of the the tumor melanin-containing cells, either from the choroid or from the uvea. So we have to distinguish it from the malignant melanoma. And there was no recurrence for a 12-month follow-up, which was available in this patient. I think the last case, we'll skip the last case.
We can skip the last case.
We are running short of time.
Yeah. That was anyway a case of meningioma. So, yeah, that's why we skipped it.
So any questions from the audience?